Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to Anthony Bidulka from SWEETGRASS BRIDGE. Anthony is an award-winning author of series. This is the second in the Mary Bell series. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you give the audience an overview about what this book is about?
Yes, for sure. Maybe I'll give you even just an overview of the main character. So Mary Bell is, I can probably promise you, the first and only Canadian kick-butt female trans private eye who's putting out her shingle in Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan, and she has a cross-dressing sidekick. So I think I'm the only one who's doing that right now, but don't quote me on that. So that's Mary Bell is our lead protagonist, our hero of the day, and this is meant to be a trilogy of books. So as you mentioned, From SWEETGRASS BRIDGE is the second, so they're in the middle of the trilogy. At the core, these are mystery novels, but beneath that, at the heart of these books are underlying themes. In the first book in the series, which is called Living Sky, and it's give you that cover there.
Beautiful.
Yes, the theme there was about coming home and how that can sometimes be a beautiful, joyous thing, but it can also be difficult and emotionally challenging. So Mary, she escaped her hometown of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, a small Canadian city in the middle of the country. Our population now is about 300,000. It's also where I happen to call home. Living Sky is sort of the fictionalized version of that city. So she has left Living Sky, gone to Vancouver, where a lot of youth who have needs that can't be met in smaller centers go to, and eventually begins her transition, never thinking that she would ever have to return home. But as life sometimes does, it kicks her in the butt and she ends up back in Saskatchewan in the city of Living Sky. So in that first book, with the underlying theme of coming home, it's about her challenges. With From SWEETGRASS BRIDGE, the underlying theme is loneliness and people's need, all of our needs to make some kind of connection. And so Mary struggles with that and tries to, I think, create some sort of community, and is surrounded by various people, including her cross-dressing sidekick, that she's not really sure whether they are friend or foe. As far as the mystery, From SWEETGRASS BRIDGE is, I kind of like the juxtaposition that I'm dealing with a trans main character and the book's about football, which is a very ultra masculine, non-trans sport, or maybe it is. To me, that made a lot of sense with this book, because I have put Mary into this setting of small Canadian prairie city, and a big thing in this part of the world and in Saskatchewan are a football team called the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the main player, the quarterback, goes missing. And Mary is drawn into that mystery of trying to find where he's gone. So that's basically the storyline.
And, I think you did such a great job in highlighting, as you were talking about, the loneliness and the being alone or on your own. So Mary is a very strong character, and I enjoyed Mary a lot, but Mary also has a lot of mental demons that she's dealing with and things that she feels very passionate about. Justice is one of those things, and I think that's a big thing. For a private eye, you want them to have their eye on the prize, and Mary certainly does, and that's that is finding out what has happened to Dustin. And, you know, one of the things, having grown up in the South, that I'm so familiar with is if you have a local home team, you get very attached to certain players. And Dustin is the hero of the home team. So when the hero of the home team goes missing, you really have put the stakes very high.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, you know, even in the short period since, I mean, the book is releasing June 1, but of course, a number of reviewers and early readers have, like yourself, have read the book. And for those who are familiar with football, and in particular Saskatchewan Roughrider, that's the very first thing that they glom onto about how, like, what would happen if, you know, that local hero, that football player is suddenly gone missing. And what I tried to play with a little bit there, Dan, is, you know, those characters, in a way, they have two existences, almost like sometimes, you know, 2S LGBTQ characters can have as well. And with the football players, they have this public persona, and they're either viewed as a hero or a villain. Sometimes there's nothing even gray in between, particularly with the main players. And to discover that that isn't necessarily who this person is, and to lead the reader down a path where they start questioning, because I think a lot of football fans will go like, you know, quarterback, let's find him and I hope he's safe. And, you know, and then, you know, the way I describe him, I mean, he does wonderful things in the community, but I slowly start chipping away at that and having the reader start to question whether that character is who we thought he was. And, you know, the end is probably not where people expect, because where, you know, like any good mystery writer, where I lead you isn't necessarily where we're going at the end of the day.
Right. And that's so I'm such a big mystery fan. And that this is a conversation that I've had with several other authors. You know, it's one thing to get red herrings, which you give us a lot of those, but you don't trick us or lie to us, which is very important for me as a reader, because that will frustrate me. I mean, I am invested in finding out who done it. And red herrings are wonderful. And you are right. You know, one of the things that you did here is a local hero. And I do know in real life, you put a person on a pedestal, and if for whatever reason they are removed from that pedestal, then people begin to wonder, well, was this the person that I really thought I knew? And I thought you did such an amazing job about that. Yet at the same time, honoring Dustin, because it would be very easy not to honor him. I mean, we still see him as someone who's exalted throughout the entire book, but we are questioning that exaltation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up. It's kind of important to me that my characters, whether they're the main characters that return from book to book or they're secondary characters, that they be as fully fleshed out and as real as I can make them. And one of my big things as a writer is that my goal has always been throughout, you know, my 20-year career is to write about underrepresented people, whoever they might be, and underrepresented places, wherever that they may be, which is why it's, you know, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which, you know, not many people have been to. But I want those characters to, I want people to feel like they could know them. And I try and stay away from the, you know, the broad strokes of, you know, the mustache twirling villain. You know, no one in my life is 100% good or 100% bad. There's all those wonderful gray places. And to me, that's the most interesting thing about people. The other thing that I am, you know, dealing with here are characters from the Indigenous community. And that's very important. Again, in Saskatchewan, you know, we have a big population from the Indigenous community, and it's important to me that I am as authentic and respectful as I am to the trans community, or the, you know, the 2S LGBTQ community overall, or the Ukrainian community, or you know, anyone that I'm trying to put forward. What I did with this book is, you probably talk to other people who have had sensitivity readers.
Mm-hmm,
So I've had, because I'm not a trans woman, I had a couple of sensitivity readers from that perspective from the Indigenous community. And then also because I know nothing about football. So I actually had a football sensitivity reader to make sure that I'm not just, saying something stupid that, because, real football fans would be reading, go like, what?
Yes, I'm going to make a suggestion, Anthony. You have to get a football and put in your background somewhere. Get the team to autograph a ball for you. That way you'll look authentic. So
that's what in one of my launch, actually my hometown launch, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders has this big gopher as their mascot. His name is Gainer. So I've actually applied for him to come. Like, I think that'd be great. A 6-foot tall gopher roaming around my book launch.
I love it. I love it. And you did bring up something that I did want to highlight. I really enjoyed your inclusion of First Nation people, and it was so well done. And you can tell the sensitivity readers did a great job because it informed what I read. And, I will say another sort of pat on the back. I do feel like if I came to Saskatchewan, I would know the people there, because that's one of the things that you do. You give us a taste of that area and what it's like with a nice tip of the hat. It's easy to make fun of something. You don't do that at all. It's very entertaining. And I feel like I know the people there. I may not know Roger personally, but
well, thanks so much for saying that, Dan. It just does my heart good, because as I said earlier, that's such a big part of why I do what I do. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I do want to, so you do have a cross-dressing sidekick. And I will say that was well done as well, because in your characters, I think sometimes it's easy to write a bit of a caricature, which you don't do that. I mean, your cross-dresser is fully fleshed out, and it is a part of their personality or their life. Mm-hmm. And I really did enjoy that.
Yeah, well, let me tell you a little bit about that, Dan, because I had not set out to write a transdress or a cross-dresser character when I first started out this trilogy. And when I was first conceptualizing the first book, Living Sky, I happened to go out for dinner with a friend of mine who asked whether I had ever written a cross-dresser as a character. And I said, no, but only because I really just have no knowledge of that life or who that person could be. And I would be very scared, I think, to make sure that I'm doing it right. And, as we talked about it a little bit more, and she said, well, I actually have a client, and she said, I think he's ready to tell his story to someone who I know will not be judgmental. And she said, I think he would think it would be very cool to have a character that's kind of based on his life. And Dan, I have to tell you, that started out, it was a several month process, but probably one of the most amazing times in my life as a writer. And so our first meeting was with my friend and this cross-dresser person and myself, and she eventually very quickly realized that we were getting along, and he felt safe and I felt safe, and we met several times over a period of months. And the things I learned, the things I never thought of, I reinforced the fact that I shouldn't have written about a cross-dresser until I knew one, and then what just I was so enamored with the fact that he was so honest and giving, and shared all his hopes and dreams and his the things that he worried about, and the things that were easy and the things that weren't. And then at the end of our 3-4 months together, he said, I've talked to my wife about this so much and how much I'm enjoying this process. Would you meet with her?
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
That would be amazing. And so then she and I had a series of meetings, just the two of us. And I couldn't help but create Roger and Brenda Brown, the characters in this trilogy after that. And, especially at first, I thought it would be the cross-dresser character that I would really love, but I really love writing about Brenda Brown, the spouse of the cross-dresser as well.
I will say that Brenda brings such joy and humor. I mean, it's funny. I was thinking, I'm going to forget the actress's name now. The blonde actress who's in White Lotus. I can see
Oh,
her.
Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes, I will say that Brenda reminded me of a Jennifer Coolidge, larger than life type of person. And I mean, I just got such joy out of it. And I would say that while I have some Mary Bell tendencies and I live alone and I like it, but I'm much more of a Brenda person. Oh, we all should get together. You know, I'm always trying to fix up things. And I know that you're a big party giver. So I think that type of Brenda character is just one of those. There are those of us who are like that. You know, I'm always trying to get all the neighbors to do things together. It's just crazy. So,
Yes.
but I loved Brenda. And
Yes. And sorry, go ahead.
no, I was about to sort of switch gears. Veronica Gray Eyes was another very, very strong female character that you had in this. And there again, we had a few red herrings with Veronica as well. And I thought Veronica was such a wonderful character in the fact that I felt like Mary Bell and Veronica were very similar, very well matched, but very, very different personalities. So it gave us a nice sort of sandpaper friction between the two of them.
Yes, no, you're very astute, Dan. That's how I see them as well. Like, I think given different circumstances, they would be close friends at the get-go, because of who they are and how they come into each other's lives. That just isn't the way it's going to be. But I love putting them together and watching that little bit of friction that you talked about. And they're either going to sand each other to death,
Yes.
or something, you know, really important or beautiful might emerge from it.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So now let's sort of switch gears a little bit and talk about you. So I don't think I've ever met a person that has a park named after them, a city park.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty darn fabulous.
It
Two of
really,
them, right?
yes, yeah, no, it really is something. It's the way it came about is that the way they name parks in this city, anyways, I don't know how it happens in other cities, is that you know, unbeknownst to you, you are nominated, you know, in secret. And you know, so the nominator will get together people to write letters of support, and it all goes into the city management office and the mayor and what have you. And you know, I was successful, and I think it's, you know, pride is a, you know, it's a word that I have some discomfort using, but I do feel some pride because it came about from partially the, you know, now 14 books that I've read or written rather, that are set in our city, either fictionally or not fictionally, and promoting diversity as I do. And then also the fact that my husband and I founded something called Camp Firefly Saskatchewan, which is a life skills retreat for LGBTQ youth, which ran in this city for, you know, a dozen years, and I think was very important in, I think, saving lives. So all of that, whenever I hear about this park or drive by, because, you know, I'm every so often.
I would. I'd be the king of selfies out there with my name behind me. I love that. I mean, honestly, what a lovely honor. I mean, when you put in the work, and I mean this sincerely, when you put in the work and then you're honored for it, that is so rewarding, and it is something to certainly be proud of. So,
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, and thank you. And I just love the inclusion of Camp Firefly. I think that's it's, you know, I have, this has been something that's been on my mind so much lately. You know, humans need community. It is so very important to us. We all crave it, no matter whether we are Mary Bell, who is sort of a bit of a loner, or whether we're Brenda, who's not a loner. We need a community, because community is how we see ourselves reflected, and you've certainly put in the work for that. So congratulations.
Yeah. Well, you know, Dan, when I knew that Camp Firefly was what it needed to be, was the way the camp works. The very first day, you know, all the youth come in, and it ranges from, you know, 13 to 21. And they're from all over the province. And we, you know, really try and focus on youth from the rural parts of the province where they don't have any other resources or community. So you'll end up with this room full of 40 youth. And that first day, they're sitting, crouched like this, their hoodies over their head. And we have them all sort of go around and introduce themselves, and you can barely hear them because they are afraid.
Yes.
They don't have community and they don't know what's coming for them. And then several days later, when we have the wrap up of the camp, it's like some alien ship came down, took those 40 and put another 40 in their place, because they are just these loud, raucous, happy, joyful, reinvigorated people who now know they're not alone. And that is just, it's such a powerful thing. And the other quick thing I'll bring up is that one of the things we instituted after the first year is that we also do a small session for the parents or the caregivers, because oftentimes, they brought these youth to us, and then, days later they're taking away someone else, and that's can be difficult. And we realize they need something too. They need to
that's wonderful.
understand what's happened. And so that's been a really popular and worthwhile part of the camp as well, just helping the parents and the caregivers start to understand. And many of them don't. They kind of know their kid just kind of cajole them into bringing them to this camp, and they don't get it. But just that first step that they are there in that room is powerful. And it's like anything else, that first step is the biggest and the most important.
I think it's, one of those things that also for the parents, they too see that they are not alone, and that there are other people who are, experiencing some similar things. So powerful and so wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So do you have a website or social media you would like to share?
I sure do. So my website it's basically my name. It's www.anthonybidulka.com. And then you can find me on Facebook under the same name, and Instagram under the same name as well. Those are sort of the three main places to find out me, and more than you'd ever want to know about.
That's the exact same phrase I say to people. You can find more about me on Out with Dan, probably a lot more than you really want to know, but go for it anyway. So why not? Again, the book is From Sweetgrass Bridge. Highly recommended. It is so wonderful. Congratulations, and thank you for being here with me, Anthony. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.